Blackroad stations. So, yes, do bear with me. I know we're standing in the middle of a car park. The reason we're here is actually not because of anything that you can see, but because of what used to lie beneath your feet, actually. We're standing on the former site of Hitler's bunker. So this is where Hitler played out the last days of the war, where he finally committed suicide at the end of April 1945. So the bunker itself was incredibly massive. It stretched up to 15 metres below the ground. There were two bunkers next to each other. The second one was built late in the war, in 1944, and this one had walls and ceilings 3.5 metres thick of reinforced concrete. So the kind of dimensions of the bunker go from... Oh, where is the difference? Okay, this spindly tree just here, yeah, kind of back to pretty much where the apartments are, back to the corner where you can see that UFO-shaped lamp in the trees, not the one in front, but in the trees, and then in a rectangular shape. So we're kind of standing on the edge of it right here. So this bunker, very, very high-tech, 2 levels underneath the ground. Hitler could direct the entire war from here. His entire government system moved down here towards the end of the war. It moved down here in April of 1945, at the very start of April, and was still telling the German people, you know, it's fine, we're going to win the war. I'm going to hang out in the bunker, nice and safe, but we're going fine. You know what's actually going to happen? Well, the Soviets, they're going to change sides. They're actually going to change sides, and they're going to fight with us against the Western Allies, and then we're going to win the war. Sounds great, doesn't it? Didn't end up happening, obviously, but that's what Hitler was telling the German people. So he came down here at the start of April, never to return up above ground alive again. By the 16th of April 45, we had the Soviet armies crossing the Oder River, which is about half an hour east of Berlin. So they were getting pretty close. Hitler's still very positive about the war. Then it gets to the 20th of April 45. This is Hitler's last birthday. So Hitler, I imagine it would have been a very, very festive celebration down there. Well, actually, that's pretty much a lie. It was very, very tense down in the bunker. Hitler didn't like the smell of cigarette smoke, so none of the people in the bunker were able to smoke. They had to come above ground to have a cigarette, and you can imagine a lot of people smoked back then, so they're all hiding out here above ground, trying not to get hit by the Soviet artillery. But anyway, so it would have been very tense down there. A couple of days after, on the 22nd of April, Hitler had what some people describe as a stroke. Some people say it was a nervous breakdown. Regardless, he was under a lot of physical stress. He actually had this really strange doctor who was prescribing him, amongst many other things, prescribing him eye drops with cocaine in them. Yeah, I'm sure he was very highly strung. So Hitler, you know, he had this little nervous breakdown, and from this point onwards he was being very negative about the war. He was accusing the German people of having failed him, saying that he had single-handedly conquered Europe and that he had done everything right, but the Germans had failed him. The German people hadn't held up their end of the bargain. So from this point onwards he was destroying and sorting through a lot of papers, trying to destroy a lot of evidence. Then it got to the 28th of April 45, and this was a day where he actually married his long-term mistress, Eva Braun. This was quite significant because Hitler, throughout his time as leader of Germany, had presented himself as being a bachelor figure. He was available to the German women. They actually found him very sexually attractive, which we probably find difficult to understand now. Obviously, we know what Hitler has done. We know all the horrible things that he did here during the war and before the war, but also we know that those brown pants and that moustache was very bad combination. But women used to swoon at his rallies. They found him very, very sexually attractive. But also he had this kind of, he was presented in this way because it was also showing him that he was a bachelor figure because he didn't have time for a wife. Because he was so connected to the German people, he was so connected to their fate in the war, it was almost that he was married to Germany. So there was no time, there was no space in his life for a wife. So his marrying Eva Braun on the 28th of April showed him kind of splitting with the German people, divorcing himself from the responsibility of the German people in the war. You know, and marrying Eva Braun in this way. So that was quite significant. 2 days later, 2 days into his honeymoon, no less, Eva Braun and Hitler got up really early and fed cyanide to Hitler's dog Blondie. Well, actually, they had to get one of Hitler's secretaries to do it because Hitler wasn't into animal cruelty, apparently. So they fed the dog cyanide to test and see if the cyanide capsules would work. Then once they saw that they did work, when Blondie died, then Eva Braun dressed up in Hitler's favourite dress and then dressed up in the dress that Hitler most liked her to wear. I don't want to be saying that Hitler was a cross-dresser. Maybe he did like to dress up in women's clothing, that's none of my business. But at this point, it was Eva dressing up in the dress that he most liked her to wear. Then she bit down on a cyanide capsule. Shortly after this, Hitler also did the same, but he also shot himself in the head from this point here, because he had been a soldier in World War I, and the soldier's death is always by the pistol. This is seen to be the least cowardly way of committing suicide. Once they were dead, Hitler's aides, his secretaries, came in and brought the bodies above ground. Brought them to a crater nearby and set them on fire to destroy them. Now, this was because Hitler had left instructions that the bodies be destroyed so that they wouldn't be used as trophies of war, maybe paraded through the streets of Moscow or anything like that. So the bodies are here, they're burning. The aides, the secretaries are kind of standing here going, oh, this is taking a really long time. I don't know how many of you have burnt a body, but it takes quite a few hours. And so they're sitting here and they're thinking, hang on a second, wait, Hitler, dead. Probably not going to get in trouble if we run away. So they kicked a bit of dirt over the bodies and then legged it out of there. A few days go by and the Soviets discover these bodies, and because of their proximity to the bunker here, it's kind of decided that this is probably Hitler's body and Eva Braun's body. They get Hitler's dentist to come in and sketch all the work that he's done on Hitler's teeth, and make a big sketch of it, filling, straightening work, things like this. Hitler was a massive sweet tooth. And then through this, they compared this sketch with the jawbone, the remains of the jaw, and it was decided that this indeed was Hitler's body. The Soviet armies decided to keep this a big secret. They buried and reburied and moved his body around about 8 times until 1971. They kept it a big secret because they wanted a reason to keep their armies in Germany, in Berlin especially. They wanted to be like, 5 years, 10 years later, go, wow, Hitler, geez, he's really good at hiding, isn't he? Let's keep our armies here in Germany because, we better find Hitler. So they kept it a big secret. Then 1971 comes around, they exhume the bodies and they reconfirm that this body actually is Hitler, and then they crush his remains and flush them into the river Elbe. This is for a few reasons. Firstly, because they didn't want Hitler to have the respect of a proper burial, and also because they didn't want any town in Germany to have the burden of having Hitler's remains buried there. Specifically, they didn't want any place in Germany to become any kind of pilgrimage site or, a place of kind of congregation for any neo-Nazi, pro-fascist movements in the future. So that's why he's not buried anywhere in Germany. This is also a similar reason why we have this car park looking the way it does. This area is pretty much it's kind of unremarkable. If you dug down, you would actually only find remains of the bunker. This was destroyed shortly after the war by the communist government here as part of their denazification process of Germany. They decided to get rid of it completely, didn't want any traces of Hitler in Berlin. So this is just, again, for those same reasons. They didn't want this place to become a place of pilgrimage or a shrine to Hitler at all. So there is a sign though, there's a sign just over there. It tells you basically what I told you about the bunker, about Hitler's last days. This was only put up here in 2005. I heard though that it was proposed in 2002. But it took the German government, or the Berlin government, about 3 years to decide on the wording, because they didn't want it to be, biased in any way. They wanted it to be completely neutral and non-offensive and just factual. So it took them that long to agree on what they were going to have on that sign there. So you can see, obviously, the Germans are trying to be very politically correct about this place. They want to mark it, they want to show you where it is, but they don't want to be celebrating Hitler in any way. But they also don't want to offend people by putting any, negative things about anyone else there. So this sign is very, very dry and just factual.